11 Olympic medals, 20 World Championship medals.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to just sit with those numbers for a second because, in sports, we get so used to hyperbole.
Would you?
The stats sort of lose their edge. We hear record-breaking and we nod.
It creates a bit of numbness to greatness, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually unpack what that hardware represents, it is staggering.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about a trophy cabinet that is practically groaning under the weight of all that metal.
Gold, silver, bronze, you name it.
But to put it in perspective, because sometimes big numbers just feel like, abstract math, this athlete we were diving into today didn't just win a lot. She broke a tie with the legendary Carl Lewis.
Right.
For the most decorated American track and field athlete in history. I mean, that is the domestic ceiling.
And if you look globally, specifically at the World Championships, which is arguably an even tougher competition year to year, she actually surpassed Usain Bolt in gold medal counts.
Which feels physiologically impossible. You hear Usain Bolt and you think, okay, that's the limit.
That's the sound barrier.
Exactly. That is the absolute peak of human velocity and dominance. And yet, here she is, standing above that stat line.
We are talking, of course, about Allyson Felix.
We are, a name that has become synonymous not just with winning, but with endurance.
And I don't just mean endurance running. I mean the endurance of relevance.
Yeah.
Of staying at the top.
For sure. And today, we've got a massive stack of source material, essentially a comprehensive biographical dossier. It covers her entire life, her 20-year career, the medical emergencies that almost ended it all.
And the business ventures that redefined her final act, which is a whole other story.
It really is. Our mission today is pretty specific. We want to figure out how a teenage prodigy who was literally nicknamed Chicken Legs in high school.
Which, by the way, looking at the physics of sprinting is actually a compliment in disguise.
Yeah. Right. Okay. We want to know how Chicken Legs became the most decorated American track and field athlete in Olympic history. And then, and this is where the story pivots from sports into something much bigger, risk that entire legacy to change how the billion-dollar sports industry treats mothers.
It's a fascinating trajectory. And I think what stands out to me, just looking at these sources, is the sheer timeline. She competed in 5 Olympics.
5, from Athens 2004 all the way to Tokyo 2020.
Which actually happened in 2021, thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
But still, in a sport like sprinting, where your prime is usually this blink-and-you-miss-it window of maybe 4 to 6 years, surviving at the elite level for 5 Olympic cycles it's an anomaly.
It's the athletic equivalent of a dinosaur surviving the asteroid and then deciding to thrive in the ice age.
Yeah.
I mean, most sprinters blow out a hamstring or just get slower by age 26.
That is one way to put it.
Yeah.
But I think if we really want to understand Allyson Felix, we have to frame this discussion not just as a sports story. It's a story about evolution. You see a physical evolution shifting from the 200 meters to the 400 meters, which is a physiological nightmare, but you also see a professional evolution.
How so?
Well, she goes from this quiet, focused athlete who let her running do the talking to a vocal advocate and entrepreneur who literally changed the rules of the game for women.
Well, let's go back to the beginning then. Let's unpack the Chicken Legs era. Because honestly, looking at her later career, it's hard to imagine her being the scrawny kid on the track.
Well, but that was the reality. She was born in Los Angeles in 1985. Her father was an ordained minister and a professor. Her mother was an elementary school teacher. So she comes from this very grounded, faith-based background.
Right.
But when she got to Los Angeles Baptist High School, she was 5'6" and weighed 125 pounds.
And when you look at the archetypal sprinter, I mean, think Ben Johnson in the 80s or even Maurice Green, you expect mass. You expect quads that look like tree trunks.
Explosive piston power.
It's all about that. But Felix didn't fit that mold at all.
Not even close. And this is where we have to get a little nerdy about physics. Sprinting is basically Newton's second law in action. Force equals mass times acceleration. F equals ma.
Okay.
To get maximum acceleration, you have 2 levers you can pull.
Yeah.
You can either increase the force you put into the ground, or you can decrease the mass you're trying to move.
And usually, to get more force, you just add muscle mass. But it's a trade-off, right? You get stronger, but you also get heavier.
Precisely. It's the sprinter's dilemma. But Felix was a genetic anomaly. The source material highlights this incredible stat from her high school weight room sessions. At just 125 pounds, which, let's be honest, is incredibly slight for a power athlete.
Yeah, tiny.
She was deadlifting 270 pounds.
270. Okay, let me do the math. That's more than 2.1 times her body weight. as a high school.
Exactly. And that specific metric, the power-to-weight ratio, that is the holy grail. She didn't have the heavy, bulky muscle mass that creates aerodynamic drag or requires more oxygen to fuel. She had what coaches call high-density power.
So she could generate the ground force of a linebacker, but with the frame of a ballerina.
That's a perfect way to put it. So when her teammates called her chicken legs, they were essentially mocking the very thing that made her aerodynamically superior.
They were mocking her efficiency.
Yes. That's why her stride looks so different. If you watch the tapes from 2003, she doesn't look like she's pounding the track. She looks like she's floating over it. That's not just style. That's the physics of a supreme power-to-weight ratio at work.
And that efficiency, it showed up on the clock immediately. She tries out for track in 9th grade, and 10 weeks later, she's 7th in the state?
That fast.
By 2003, Track and Field News names her the High School Athlete of the Year. And then she makes a decision that really, I think, set the tone for her business acumen later in life.
She skipped the NCAA.
A huge deal at the time.
Oh, it was a major headline. She graduates high school in 2003 and had every major college recruiting her. But she bypassed the collegiate system entirely to sign a professional contract with Adidas.
But she didn't skip the education, which I remember was a huge sticking point for her family.
It was non-negotiable. And this just speaks to her leverage. Even at 18 years old, Adidas actually paid for her college tuition at USC as part of the endorsement deal.
Wow.
So she went pro, took the money, but still went to class, and eventually graduated with a degree in elementary education.
So she was balancing being a global brand ambassador with sitting an intro to psych.
Can you imagine? It's wild. Imagine sitting in your elementary education class, worrying about a midterm, while the person next to you is training for the Athens Olympics.
And not just training, but winning medals. This brings us to the first major chapter of her Olympic career. You called it the heartbreak era.
I did. And it might sound harsh for someone winning Olympic medals.
It does sound a little harsh. She won a silver medal at age 18 in Athens. Most people would dine out on that for the rest of their lives.
True. Winning silver at 18 is an incredible achievement. She ran 22.12 seconds in the 200 meters, setting a world junior record. But for an athlete of Felix's caliber, silver can be a complicated color. Especially when you look at the narrative arc of her rivalry with Veronica Campbell-Brown.
The Jamaican sensation.
The rivalry. In Athens 2004, Campbell-Brown takes gold, Felix takes silver. Okay. Fast forward 4 years to Beijing 2008. Felix is now a seasoned pro. She's the favorite. She runs her season's best time.
And the result?
She finishes second to Veronica Campbell-Brown. Again.
That has to be psychologically brutal.
Oh, absolutely.
You spend 4 years thinking about that one person, that one race. You execute your game plan. You run your best, and you are still second best.
It was devastating for her. The sources quote her saying, "I never want to be satisfied with losing." And that's the elite mindset, you know?
Right.
It's not about the medal count. It's about the color. Most people would be thrilled with back-to-back Olympic silvers. For her, it was fuel. It forced her to develop a mental callousness that I think became her superpower later on. She wasn't just fast. She learned how to endure disappointment without letting it break her.
So she's got this silver medal, she's got the rivalry, but she needs the gold. And that brings us to London 2012. This feels like the climax of the first act of her movie.
London 2012 was absolutely the peak of her golden era. This is where the potential met the execution. She wasn't just participating, she was dismantling the field.
She walks away from London with 3 gold medals.
3. That puts her in very rarefied air, historic air.
Since when?
She became the first American woman to win 3 golds in athletics at a single Olympics since Florence Griffith Joyner in 1988.
Since FloJo.
Wow. And the sweetest one you have to imagine was the 200 meters.
Because she finally exorcised the demons.
She finally beat the field. She beat Campbell-Brown. She beat Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price. She ran a 21.88. She finally got that individual Olympic gold that had eluded her for 8 long years.
But we have to talk about the relay, because when I was writing the notes on this, I had to double-check the year of the previous record. The 4x100-meter relay in London.
Yeah, the world record. This is one of the greatest performances in track history, bar none.
The team was Tiana Madison, Allyson Felix, Bianca Knight, and Carmelita Jeter. And they didn't just break the record, did they? They took a sledgehammer to it.
They ran 40.82 seconds.
Yeah.
To give you some context, they broke a record set by East Germany in 1985.
1985.
Now, for those who know track history, records from the mid-'80s Eastern Bloc are, let's just say, Statistically suspicious.
They're often considered unbreakable because of the state-sponsored doping programs of that era, right?
Exactly.
So breaking an East German record from 85 is like breaking a barrier that wasn't supposed to be humanly possible without pharmaceutical help.
And they did it cleanly.
Yeah.
Felix ran the second leg, the long back straight.
Yeah.
If you watch the footage, that is where the race was breaking wide open. Her split was devastating.
Incredible.
But what is really fascinating about Felix is that after conquering the 200 meters and the short relay, she didn't just stay in her lane. She started to transition. She began eyeing the 400 meters.
Which I think casual fans, myself included, sometimes fall into the trap of thinking the 400 meters is just two 200 meters put together. You just run twice as far, right?
Right.
But looking at the training logs, the transition Felix made here is physiological warfare.
It's a completely different energy system. That is the key distinction. The 100 and 200 meters are powered by the ATP-CP system. It's instant explosive energy stored in the muscles.
Okay.
You don't even really need to breathe to finish a 100-meter dash. You're running on rocket fuel.
But that tank empties out pretty fast.
Around 10 to 12 seconds in. Once you pass that 200-meter mark, your body has to switch gears into the glycolytic system. You start burning glycogen, and the byproduct of that is hydrogen ions, what we commonly associate with the burn of lactic acid.
That sensation where your legs feel like they've turned into concrete and are actively fighting your brain?
That's it, exactly. It's your brain screaming, stop. The 400 meters is unique because it forces you to sprint, not jog. Sprint directly into that acid bath.
So for Felix, a specialist in the shorter, explosive distances, she had to retrain her body to tolerate that level of systemic acidity.
Which was a massive risk. She had sacrificed some of that raw snap-your-fingers speed to build the lungs for the 400.
It's almost like a Formula One car trying to run the 24 hours of Le Mans. You have to rebuild the engine while the car is still moving.
And remember the timing. She isn't doing this at 19. She's moving into the 400 meters later in her career. Most athletes lose speed as they age, so they move up in distance naturally. But Felix wasn't just moving up to retire, she was moving up to dominate.
And she proved it at the Beijing 2015 World Championships,
where she won the 400-meter gold.
But there's a specific number from 2015 that I think illustrates her greatness better than any individual medal. It was the relay split.
The 4x400 relay. She ran her leg in 47.72 seconds.
47.72.
That is the fastest split ever recorded by an American woman. It is the third fastest split in history by any female athlete. It showed that she had this unique combination of raw sprinter speed from her 200-meter days and the endurance she had built for the 400. She was essentially the perfect athletic weapon.
So she is on top of the world. 2012, she's the queen of the track. 2015, she's conquering a new distance. 2016 Rio Olympics are coming up, and she is aiming for the double, winning the 200 meters and the 400 meters.
Right.
It's all set up to be her coronation.
And instead, 2016 becomes a year of chaos. It starts in the gym with a freak accident.
You think of athletes getting hurt on the track, pulling a hamstring, twisting an ankle, but she fell off a pull-up bar.
It sounds almost mundane, doesn't it? April 2016. She's doing core work, hanging from a pull-up bar. She drops down, lands awkwardly, and tears ligaments in her ankle.
Oh, no.
This creates a kinetic chain disruption. You can't put power into the ground if your ankle's unstable.
And this is just months before the Olympics.
Right. She could barely walk. She couldn't sprint. Her preparation for the Olympic trials was almost non-existent. She had to rely entirely on muscle memory and grit.
And somehow, she still makes the team for the 400 meters.
She does. But the lack of speed work cost her the spot in the 200 meters by 1/100th of a second.
1/100th, 0.01.
So the double dream was dead. But she goes to Rio for the 400 meters. And this leads to one of the most controversial finishes in Olympic history.
The dive.
The dive. Felix is closing in on the gold. She is hunting down Shanae Miller of the Bahamas. It looks like Felix is going to nip her at the line. She has the momentum.
And then Miller just launches herself.
She literally flew through the air like Superman. I remember watching that live and screaming at the TV because it felt like cheating.
It did. It creates this visceral reaction, doesn't it?
It does. But looking at the rule book, it is completely legal.
Really?
Yeah. The rule states that the torso must cross the finish line. It doesn't specify how the torso gets there. Running, falling, diving, it all counts.
So Miller crosses the line 0.07 seconds ahead of Felix because of the dive.
Exactly. And for Felix, to fight back from a torn ankle, to be that close, and to lose to a dive, that is heartbreak on a different level.
Brutal.
But Rio wasn't done with the drama. We have to talk about the 4x100 relay. Because if the dive was heartbreak, the relay was a psychological thriller.
The baton drop.
In the semifinal, Felix is handing the baton to English Gardner. As she's coming in, a Brazilian runner in the next lane swings her arm out and bumps Felix.
Oh, man.
The kinetic energy of the bump knocks Felix off balance.
And the baton hits the track. In a relay, that's usually game over. Disqualification, you're done.
But the U.S. appealed. They argued interference, and the officials agreed. But the problem was, the race was over. The other teams had qualified. So to get into the final, the U.S. team had to run a time trial.
What does that mean exactly in this context?
It means they had to run the race again, by themselves.
It's just 4 women on an empty track?
Imagine the visual. An empty stadium track, no competitors to push you, just the clock and the pressure of the entire world watching. Sprinting is usually reactive. You run faster when someone is chasing you.
But here they were chasing a ghost.
A ghost. If they didn't beat the qualifying time, they're out.
Talk about mental toughness. The silence in that stadium must have been deafening.
And they crushed it. They ran the fastest qualifying time of the entire field. They advanced to the final and won gold. It was a testament to their professionalism. They didn't panic. They just executed.
So Rio ends with gold. But honestly, looking at the timeline, what happens after Rio is where the story shifts from great athlete to, legend.
This is the pivot point.
Because this is where she starts fighting battles that have nothing to do with running fast.
This is it. Up until 2017, Allyson Felix was known for being somewhat private. She was the polished, perfect ambassador for the sport. But then she decided to start a family.
And in the world of professional track and field, that wasn't just a personal decision. It was a professional risk that most of us in regular jobs can't even comprehend.
A massive risk.
Mm.
She kept her pregnancy a secret for a long time. She wanted to maintain her career. But in 2018, things took a terrifying turn.
The medical emergency.
Yes. At 32 weeks pregnant, she went for a routine checkup. The doctors found she had severe preeclampsia. Her blood pressure was sky high.
Oh, wow.
And the baby's heart rate was dropping. It was a life or death situation for both of them.
So they had to do an emergency C-section immediately.
Immediately. Her daughter Cameron was born premature, weighing only about 3 pounds. She spent weeks in the NICU.
I can't even imagine.
And this experience radicalized Felix. She realized that she wasn't just unlucky, she was part of a horrific statistic. Black women in America face disproportionately high rates of maternal mortality and complications compared to white women.
And she didn't just tweet about it. She took that data to the highest level.
She testified before the House Committee on Ways and Means. She spoke about racial bias in healthcare. She used her platform to shine a spotlight on a crisis that affects thousands of women who don't have her resources.
But while she was dealing with this medical trauma and becoming a new mom, she was also fighting a war on another front, a financial war with her sponsor. And this is the part of the story that really blew my mind. Allyson Felix was a Nike athlete. She was the Nike athlete.
Years. And her contract expired in December 2017. So she was negotiating a renewal. Now, let's just pause on the context. Nike at this time is running huge inspirational ad campaigns. Remember the Dream Crazy campaign?
Of course. Believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything. They were marketing themselves as the champions of empowerment.
So publicly, the message is just do it. But privately, in the boardroom, the message to Felix was, you are a depreciating asset. When she told them she wanted to start a family, the term sheet they sent back included a 70% pay reduction.
70%.
70. A 7-0.
That is insulting, doesn't even cover it.
It gets worse. It wasn't just the money. Felix asked for salary protection. She basically said, if my performance dips in the months right after I give birth or while I'm recovering, I want to guarantee that you won't dock my pay.
Which seems eminently reasonable. You can't run world record times while you are recovering from major abdominal surgery, a C-section. She was asking for a bridge to get back to form.
And Nike said no.
Wow.
Think about the audacity of that. They were banking on her silence. You have to realize, these contracts usually come with ironclad NDAs. Athletes are terrified to speak out against shoe companies.
Because these companies control the entire ecosystem of track and field.
It's everything. Sponsorship is the only way these athletes make a living. There is no league salary.
So when she wrote that op-ed for the New York Times, she wasn't just risking a contract, she was risking her standing in the entire sport. She was biting the hand that feeds the whole industry.
She was torching the safety boat. And she did it while she was at home, looking at her premature daughter, dealing with the trauma of the NICU. It shifted the story from athlete wants more money to Mother fights for basic dignity.
And that op-ed was an earthquake in the sports world.
It was, and it worked. The public outcry was immense. In August 2019, Nike announced a new maternity policy. They guaranteed pay for 18 months around pregnancy.
For everyone.
They didn't just change it for Felix, they changed it for everyone.
That is a legacy that goes way beyond a medal count. If she hadn't done that, how many other athletes would have been forced into retirement?
Exactly. She changed the economic landscape of the sport. But here's the kicker. She left Nike anyway.
She walked away.
She signed with Athleta, becoming their first sponsored athlete. But then she took it a step further. She realized that even with a new sponsor, she wanted true ownership.
So she launched her own footwear company.
Saysh. And this sets up the final act of her career, Tokyo 2020.
The Olympics that happened in 2021. And let's remember the context here. She's a mother now. She's in her mid-30s. She has started a business. She has no shoe sponsor other than herself.
And COVID has shut down the world. The training stories from this period are incredible. Gyms were closed, tracks were locked up. She was training on streets, on beaches, on empty soccer fields.
She was literally running sprints in her neighborhood while her daughter played nearby and trying to make her 5th Olympic team.
And not just make it, she wanted to win. But first, we have to mention Doha 2019. This was her first world championship back as a mom.
Great, the mixed gender relay.
She wins gold in the mixed 4x400 relay, and that was her 12th world championship gold.
Yeah.
That is the moment she surpassed Usain Bolt for the most golds in world championships history.
Beating Bolt's record as a mom coming back from a C-section, that is the ultimate mic drop.
But Tokyo was the swan song. She qualified for the 400 meters. She is 35 years old. She's racing against women 10 years younger than her, and she is wearing her own shoes.
That is the ultimate flex. I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to do it in shoes I designed because the industry didn't think I was worth investing in.
She became the first athlete to win Olympic medals, wearing her own company's spikes. And creating a performance spike is not easy engineering. It was a massive gamble.
So how does she...
In the race itself, she ran a 49.46 in the final.
Is that fast for a 35-year-old?
It is a master's record for the 35-40 age group, and she won the bronze medal.
Bronze. But at that stage, with that backstory, bronze feels heavier than gold.
Absolutely. And then, to cap it all off, she runs the 4x400 relay. The Dream Team, Sydney McLaughlin, Delilah Muhammad, Athing Mu, and Allyson Felix, they win gold.
And that brought the total to 11.
11 Olympic medals. She passed Carl Lewis. She stands alone at the top of the mountain.
And then finally, she hangs up the spikes.
She retired after the 2022 World Championships, where, of course, she won a final gold and bronze in the relays, just for good measure.
Of course she did.
So when we look back at this career, from chicken legs in 2003 to the GOAT in 2022, we're looking at 31 total global medals. But we're also looking at someone who fundamentally misunderstood the limits that were placed on her.
What do you mean?
Well, she was told she was too skinny. She set records. She was told she was a 200-meter runner. She won the 400-meter. She was told she couldn't be a mother and a paid athlete. She forced the biggest sports company in the world to rewrite their contracts.
It's a dual legacy. The stats are on the scoreboard, but the structural change is in the contracts of every female athlete coming up behind her.
Precisely. She cleared the hurdles on the track, and then she dismantled the hurdles off the track.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here is a question to chew on. Allyson Felix won her last Olympic medals, a gold and a bronze, at age 35. She ran a personal best in the 400 meters at age 29. She broke the master's record at 35.
And she did it wearing shoes she made herself because the industry didn't value her.
Exactly. So if Felix hadn't challenged that sponsorship model, if she had just accepted the 70% pay cut and retired quietly, how many other female athletes have we already lost? How much greatness has been forced into early retirement because the industry decided that mother and champion were mutually exclusive?
And furthermore, you have to ask, considering she was winning medals well past what is considered prime age, what does that say about how we undervalue experience?
Yeah.
Maybe we are retiring athletes, especially women, way too early.
Something to think about the next time you see a shoe commercial. That is it for this deep dive into the life and legacy of Allyson Felix.
Keep asking questions.
We'll see you next time.